Hello, everyone. My name is Samantha Hunter, and I work in the Policy Office at the National Science Foundation. It is my pleasure to welcome you today to the Spring NSF Virtual Grants Conference. I'm now pleased to present this session, which will cover the Directorate for Social, Behavioral, and Economic Sciences, or SBE. This session will be presented by Program Director Nancy Lutz.
Hi, everybody. Our goal for the next hour or so is to tell you something about social, behavioral, and economic sciences at NSF. I'm Nancy Lutz. I'm a program director in the Directorate for SBE. And in that program, I am part of the Division of Social and Economic Sciences. Like all program directors, I work on a number of different NSF programs, but my primary assignment is NSF's economics program. So we want to start by telling you a little bit about SBE itself. I'm assuming that you've listened to some of the earlier presentations, which are telling you about NSF as a whole and about our merit review process. But what is the Directorate for SBE? Well, at a lot of your campuses, this is going to be called social sciences, but we break it into three pieces to emphasize the different dimensions in which the SBE sciences work. Those sciences, as a group of researchers, we explore human behavior and social organizations using scientific methods. We promote the progress of science by developing and employing rigorous methods to discover fundamental principles of human behavior at multiple levels, from cells in your brain to the entire global macroeconomy, and at spatial dimensions that go from a single person to, again, the entire human population in the globe, and time spans that range from a few seconds to hundreds of years. The Directorate is also the home of the government statistical agency that measures the science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, the STEM, enterprise in the United States. So how are we organized? Like every NSF directorate, we are led by an assistant director. Assistant there because they are assistants to the head of the entire National Science Foundation. We're divided into divisions and offices. So we have an Office of SBE Multidisciplinary Activities that we call SMA. We have a Division of Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences, BCS, a Division of Social and Economic Sciences, SES, and then that statistical branch that I mentioned, which is the National Center for Science and Engineering Statistics. Since you're here today to find out about NSF research funding opportunities, we're going to focus most of today on BCS, SES, and the smaller number of programs hosted by SMA. I encourage you to check out the NCSES website to find out more about the kinds of data they collect and how, if you're interested in studying science as a process, you may find some of their data a useful place for your own research. If you're from a sponsored programs office, you may find NCSES data useful to understand NSF investment in your state, investments from other federal and private organizations in R&D in your state. Let me talk a little bit about our research activities in SBE by the numbers. Here I'm going to highlight some results from a brand new website that we launched quite recently called NSF by the Numbers. It's available to you through our beta website, and I have the link at the bottom of the page. This is a Tableau-built dashboard that will let you query to find out about activities undertaken by different NSF directorates. So when you ask for fiscal year 2021, the most recent full year of data, NSF SBE had new award obligations of $254 million. That means money we use to start new awards, as opposed to money we spent giving people money we had promised them in past awards that they would get during this fiscal year. We made 3,956 proposal decisions. You should think of this as the number of proposals submitted. We call it proposal decisions because we get some proposals in fiscal year 20 in August that then we made decisions in 21 through the merit review process. We made 918 new awards, so that's a funding rate of about 23%. NSF by the numbers doesn't report this, but you can do a teeny bit of arithmetic to see that our average award size was 277K. I really encourage you to go play around there. It's especially interesting if you're curious about how the size of one NSF directorate in terms of the number of awards or the average award size or the funding rate compares to a different NSF directorate. These numbers are based on funds controlled by the Directorate for SBE. Many SBE scientists are funded as part of interdisciplinary cross-directorate teams through other parts of NSF and some of the cross-directorate initiatives that SBE participates in. And I'll say a little more about that later on. All right, so that's the basic organizational layout. I hope that helps you understand the first layer of NSF acronyms. My next couple of slides are just going to give you long lists of possible programs. Once upon a time, when I gave this kind of presentation, I had a slide for every program. That doesn't work well in the current environment for two reasons. The first is we keep on adding programs. So it would become, the slide deck went from something I could get through in an hour to something that takes me an hour and a half. The second thing is NSF changes. Our staff, part of our staff are visiting academics from universities. We open new programs. All of this means that almost as soon as I would put together a slide for, say, the archaeology and archaeometry program, it would be out of date. So instead, what I'm going to do here is talk to you broadly about the BCS programs, the SES programs, and the SMA programs, and then talk about how you can identify what programs are right for you or right for your community. So if you take a look, you'll see that the Division of Behavioral and Cognitive Sciences does tend to focus on the sciences that study individuals. So this is where you're going to see most of, but not all of our efforts in psychology, in cognitive science, in anthropology. This is also in linguistics. This is also where we do archaeology, geography, which is covered under human environment and geographical science. And we also have several things here that you may not know what they are. What's developmental sciences and how does it differ from the science of learning? What's human networks and data science and what's strengthening American infrastructure? SAI is the newest element in the BCS programs, and it actually works with a number of other NSF directorates. So let me show you something about the SES programs. And here they are. All right, SES as a division tends to focus more on programs that do science of social organizations. Economics is here, sociology is here. There are several programs in SES that are explicitly interdisciplinary, like decision, risk, and management science, which draws on multiple disciplines, or methodology, measurement, and statistics, which focuses on methodology, measurement, and statistical methods for research in the SBE sciences in particular. We have two programs that look at study science itself as a social enterprise, the science of science and science and technology studies. SATSI, Secure and Trustworthy Cyberspace, is again a program that is joint with other parts of NSF, in this case, our Directorate for Computer and Information Science and Engineering. Law and Science, which is a program that was fairly recently revisioned or rescoped. This was formerly the Program for Law and Social Science. And two programs called Accountable Institutions and Behavior and Security and Preparedness that may make you go, what are those? I'll come back to that in a bit. SMA, again, this is our Office of SBE Multidisciplinary Activities. Some people think SMA is going to be where all interdisciplinary research in SBE has to be housed, just from the names. But that's not true. SMA looks at a small group of pretty carefully targeted programs. This is where we run our research experience for undergraduate site competition. If you're at an RU eligible institution and you want to submit a research experience, a proposal that includes research experiences for undergraduates as part of a regular research proposal, you'll be submitting to one of our programs. We also have a fairly small postdoctoral research fellowship program. Again, this is not what you apply to if you want funding for a postdoc for your project. That comes through our regular programs. It is a fairly small program that gives a group of postdocs independent funding to work with identified mentor. We have ethical and responsible research, and we have build and broaden. I've highlighted build and broaden here for two reasons. First of all, if you are at a minority serving institution in an MSI, you should really check out Build and Broaden, which is SBE's relatively new effort to promote research capacity at this group of institutions. That also applies if you've got a co-author or collaborator in an MSI. Second reason I'm highlighting it is because it is 3.0. This is really worth remembering. Each of these programs, Build and Broaden in particular, which is why they're using the 3.0, may change the specifics of what they're looking to fund or their focus from year to year. Always be sure you're looking at the most recent information for any of these programs. Besides these programs that are funded out of the SBE budget and are administered through SBE, whether they are discipline-based programs like my own economics program, or interdisciplinary programs that cross discipline boundaries in the SBE sciences, like the science of organizations, SBE also participates in what NSF calls cross-directorate initiatives. That's a term we use all the time, and it's a term I never heard in my faculty life. So what does it mean? They cut across NSF's own organizational boundaries. So they cut across NSF directorates. So it's not psychologists necessarily and economists competing for the same pool of money and possibly forming interdisciplinary teams. It's psychologists working with computer scientists. It's crossing our directorate boundaries. These initiatives are run by teams of program directors that represent the different directorates involved. As a group, they have freestanding review processes. So you're not going to apply to the sociology program. You're going to apply directly to a cross-directorate initiative that is going to run its own review process, which will probably involve cross-directorate recruitment of reviewers. And often these change from year to year, both in terms of what are the specifics of how you apply and what they're looking for. And also some of the cross-directorate initiatives exist at NSF over very long time periods. And others are funded for a few years. And then we think we've achieved our major goals to promote change. And we transition to another new kind of effort. This is a long list. So I'm going to just show you three examples in this slide. Ecology and evolution of infectious diseases, which is about incorporating better modeling of human behavior into epidemiological modeling. That's SBE and our Directorate for Mathematical and Physical Sciences, primarily the math side. Dynamics of integrated socio-environmental systems, which, again, this is really about integrating social and environmental systems, and it is a place where SBE scientists and biologists are working together. And one of NSF's 10 big ideas, which were our big new push 4 or 5 years ago, and this one specifically is the future of work at the human technology frontier, in which SBE is working with the Directorate for Engineering and the Directorate for Computer and Information Sciences and Engineering. All right, any one of these many programs might make multiple kinds of awards. NSF program directors tend to refer to these as mechanisms. So if somebody at NSF says, well, no, we don't have a RAPID program, a RAPID is a mechanism, that's what they're referring to. So this is a list of the different kinds of awards any one program might give. Not all programs will be involved in all of these. I'm highlighting DDRIG, Doctoral Dissertation Research Improvement Grants here, because those are a specific kind of award that only SBE offers. The rest of the foundation is not currently doing these. Those are small pots of money for given to an advisor with their graduate student as the co-PI to fund some very direct research expenses, things like data purchases or travel to an archive for data collection. These are not fellowships. They're not going to pay stipend or research, stipend or tuition. Okay. So now you've had a really long list of programs. And the question is, how do I find out about any of these? The other question, if you're a researcher yourself, ought to be, I have a project that I am super excited about. I am passionate about it. And I'm trying to figure out where at NSF I might be able to find funding for this super exciting project. So here I have 4 main suggestions. If you're a research administrator, on the other hand, you may think of these as 4 strategies, some of which work great for your faculty and some of which are better ways for you to proceed. The first one is to use our new NSF funding search. This will let you look for specific programs and is an easy way to find lists of what a specific program has funded in the past. The second one is NSF award search, especially the advanced award search. For all the faculty listening to me, this is the closest NSF is going to give you to running something like a literature search, so that you want to know what has NSF funded on organ transplantation in the Division of Social and Economic Sciences, or what has NSF funded on electricity regulation. Those are ways to look at what we are currently doing, but you may want a good way to get notified when something changes at NSF. And we have announcements and newsletters that include regular updates when we establish new programs or issue new targeted calls through something like a Dear Colleague letter. And we also use this to tell you about certain kinds of targeted and time-limited outreach activities, like when a specific program team decides to host webinars to provide extra information about their program to a broad community. You can subscribe to the SBE newsletter. You do that the same way you subscribe to any other newsletter. The link is on the SBE homepage at nsf.gov. The SBE also has a dedicated Key to Funding Opportunities page, which is a list of all of the programs in which SBE is currently participating. So let's talk about how you use some of these. This is NSF's new funding search tool. It's on our beta site. Us program directors are all excited about this one. So this screenshot is designed to show you, you notice that NSF didn't have a targeted program with the name of the discipline on it for political science. So suppose you're a political scientist and you're trying to figure out, does NSF fund political science? Well, one easy way to do this is to go to the funding opportunities page, the funding search page, and just run a funding search on political science. You can filter your search in different ways. I would suggest filtering by directorate, possibly by division. When you do that, what you're going to see is a long list of possible programs. Each has a really brief write-up that you can read right on this webpage, 2 or 3 sentences. And when you go through that, I think this is the 3rd entry on that page, you'll see security and preparedness has a description that ends up sounding like part of political science. Accountable institutions and behavior has a description that sounds like most of the rest of the field of political science. To find out more about what security and preparedness is actually aimed at, click on the blue link and it will take you to the program page in Funding Search specifically for the SAP program. Now, this screenshot is just part of the page because of space limits. It actually has a fancy graphic header, so I have to show you the middle of the page to show you any content. But this is a ton of information about the program on this page with links to important additional information. So there is a synopsis of the program. As you read this, you will see a whole list of topics in the synopsis that clearly are political science topics. There's also a link here to how you apply. If this program has a full solicitation, there's a link on this page to the solicitation. Right up here, you can see information about where our proposals due in your top right-hand corner. Need to know the names and contact information for the program directors. These are the scientists who are in charge of coordinating the merit review process for this program. This will be the most recent information, and it updates within a week or 2 of when new people come to NSF. So if you want to know currently who is working with us for the SAP program, this is where you should look for that information. Finally, click here. I have that one bolded down below where it says browse projects funded by this program. Click there and you're going to see a list of all of the recent awards made by this program. A second way of figuring out what NSF programs have been funding is to use advanced award search. You can get to the funding search page just by Googling NSF funding search, and you can get to this page just by Googling NSF advanced award search. Both of those work fine. This is an old-fashioned interface, but it has a key feature. It lets you look not just at awards a specific program has funded, but it also lets you search to see. John Smith is a political scientist, and he's worked on conflict in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. And I know he has NSF funding, but I'm wondering what program funded that project. Here you can search for all NSF awards made to this person. Be sure to click that include co-PI investigator, because he may be the co-PI and not the lead PI on the proposal he's listed in his publications. Or maybe you're interested in electricity regulation and you're wondering what programs have funded work on electricity regulation. You can use the keyword search, and it'll search all titles and all abstracts of all active NSF awards. No matter how you search, your output is going to look like this. It's just going to be a list with a little bit of very basic information. Who the PI was, who the co-PI was, what the award number was, the NSF, the university that got the award, and the division that funded it. Click on any blue link to get more information about that specific award. And here's an example. This will tell you who the program director is, who's managing that award. They're listed as the program manager. The start date, the end date, the awarded amount to date. Generally, this is the full amount of the award, but if it is an award where we're giving them money on a year-by-year basis, it will only be the amount of money they have currently received. It will tell you the NSF program or programs that are funding. Some projects are co-funded. Multiple programs work together to grant awards for that, grant funds for that award. And so you can see, for example, if you're searching for work in behavioral economics, you will see that some of those awards are funded both by the economics program and by the decision risk and management sciences program working together. And you'll be able to read the entire award abstract. Now, the award abstract is not the same thing as the abstract for publications that they would put out. The first paragraph in particular is written for a more general public audience than you research experts, but it is still a super good way to get a deeper dive into what exactly was what is happening in the project. All right, so you've identified a program using some of these tips, and now you're ready to start thinking about writing a proposal. So I'm going to finish up with a few tips here specific to that process. The next thing you need to do is read. You need to read the program description. If the program has a formal solicitation, you need to read the solicitation. If somebody sent you a link to some other kind of NSF call, you need to read it. And you also need to look at NSF's official policy manual, the Proposal and Award Policy Procedures Guide. You want to read the most recent version of that because it changes every year. So you want to read the version that's going to apply to your proposal, which is generally based on when proposals are due for the opportunity you're applying for. It is long. It is written by lawyers. It is not fun reading, but you do need to read the proposal preparation sections. We get a lot of people who ask us questions to where the basic answer is read the PAPPG, it's explained in there. A lot of times program directors don't have secret information. NSF has put it all in the PAPPG for a reason. Often the next tip is to contact a program director. A lot of times people get told, well, the way you get funded is you get to know a program director. Other times people have questions and they want to know, how do I ask them? So here are some tips for contacting NSF program directors from the perspective of the program director. First thing you do is you narrow down the programs that match your area of research, and you've read the program page and the solicitation. The next thing you do is write up a 1 to 2 page description of the project. Include the intellectual merit and the broader impacts, and write it for a program director, which means somebody with a PhD who's working in the field. But make sure you're talking about the contribution your research will make to advancing the field, and that you're pitching it that appropriate. Okay, email that to the program director. Get feedback, ask them for feedback. Is this a project that would fit with your program? If you have any other specific questions, that email is a really good time to ask them. I really do recommend email for a bunch of reasons, even more so because NSF is transitioning to a hybrid workspace, even post-COVID. This is the best way to get us to answer you as quickly as possible. Email all of the relevant programs in a single email. We have 3 program directors in economics. There are 2 program directors working in decision risk and management sciences. If you write 5 separate emails, we will all have to check with each other to see if one of us has already answered this question. So email us all. It makes it much easier for us to track and work together as a team. We get a lot of email, as you can imagine. We work pretty hard, and we definitely drop balls. So if you haven't heard back from us in a week, it doesn't mean we hate you. If you haven't heard back for a week and you didn't get an away message explaining that so-and-so's away from their desk, just resend it with a note saying, hey, I'm pinging you, I didn't hear back. Chances are it got lost in an overdue inbox. This is kind of a daily occurrence for me and for most of my colleagues, and we'll do our best to get you an answer. Individual programs and individual program directors may prefer to talk to you via Zoom or phone, but they'll offer that to you after you've started with an email. Some programs have dedicated Zoom office hours that you can sign up for, and some programs will do webinars like this one before their due dates to answer questions in a public environment. What a given program offers depends on the program director's workload and preferred ways of managing that. So all of those are options, and follow up with the program directors and see how it goes. All right, I'm going to close with a few common pitfalls in SBE slides and SBE proposals before we go to Q&A. One is overlooking key aspects of the program announcement and the requirements, whether those are in the solicitation or in the PAPPG. I have had people tell me, why are you telling me I need to do this? I don't need to do this. I have been submitting proposals to NSF for 30 years. And the answer is that NSF's requirements have changed. You need to read the syllabus and follow the syllabus. It changes. If it changes, it's changed for a reason, and it's important to actually do what we ask you to do. Another common pitfall, SBE is a small research directorate, and there are going to be lots of people at your university who are more familiar with working with one of our other directorates. So if somebody gives you advice or says, I know what you need to do and it's this, you might want to double check and say, is this good advice for SBE? That would be something that you could check with the program director in that email that you're sending to check fit. All of my SBE colleagues and I agree that we want to see proposals that are specific about the methods and about how the hypotheses that you are examining in your proposal relate to the relevant theory in your field. We are also seeing too many underdeveloped or vague data analysis plans. It's not enough to say, give me the money and then I will figure out exactly what the best way is to approach the data. You need to have done some serious thinking about how you're going to analyze your data before you come to us for funding. Another big mistake is people will start off with framing or motivation, and when you get into the details of the proposed research, what they're actually proposing to do doesn't really relate to what they say is motivating their project. Another mistake is failing to establish feasibility. So, for example, we have had people say, well, I'm going to go into public schools and measure A, B, and C, but it turns out that they have no relationship yet with any public school or permission to do this. And they think that NSF money will mean that they can get the permission. We need you to have established that relationship. We need you to be able to hit the ground running if we make an award. So we want you to demonstrate the feasibility of what you're planning to do. And finally, not tailoring your proposal to the appropriate audience. If you're applying to the sociology program, most of your reviewers are going to be sociologists who are part of that professional conversation, and they're going to want to know, how is your proposal moving the field of sociology forward? If you're applying to an interdisciplinary program like decision risk and management sciences, your proposal might be reviewed by both a cognitive psychologist or a social psychologist and by an economist. And you're going to need to make sure that you write something that's readable by both. This is a really good question to ask in that email to program directors. Where is your reviewer pool drawn from? What kind of an audience am I writing for when I prep my proposal? All right, I could go through all the pieces of the proposal, but you're going to read the proposal in a Word policy and procedures guide, so you know that. So that's going to walk you through that. I could tell you that you need to submit through your university and allow enough lead time for that whole process to work. But when you read your PAPPG, you see right away that you need to submit through your university. And hopefully and if you're even here, you're probably already pretty well clued in that your university offers resources to help you. If you're not from a university, yes, we work with institutions that are not colleges or universities, again, in the PAPPG. So let's use the rest of this time for questions. Here are a few hints that will help me answer those questions. And in addition, I may in the live Q&A ask someone to follow up with me via email. So here's my email address. Thanks, and I'm looking forward to the Q&A because that's always the most fun part.
Thank you for that, Nancy. We will now turn over to the Q&A part. But I do want to say one thing. I can't resist commenting on the PAP guide, as you mentioned. It is not written by lawyers. I'm one of the people who had to language through that document, just messing with you. But no, that comes from the policy office with insight from our Office of General Counsel. So we do have some lawyers in there. But yes, and we think it's exciting reading, but we might be in the minority on that one.
We wrote a lot of times in this presentation when I say we, I don't mean you. I now understand that a lot of people attending today are in research offices or in research administration roles. And like many program directors, I tend to speak directly to the PIs.
Absolutely. Yes.
So for them, I get the response, why am I reading this?
Yes.
Or for you as a research administrator, you should feel free to say, NSF says it's like your syllabus for your freshman class.
Yes.
Do not argue with me, read it.
That's right. And that's what a lot of times at the grants conference, we have an audience that has, both sets in there. So we try to make sure that, faculty will hear, as you just said, what we are telling the research administrators. So just to help them out to know they're right when they tell you, this is what NSF says. So, that's exactly right. So your take on it is exactly right. So thank you. And thank you for the presentation. So now we will get into some of the questions that have come in. We'll start with, so SISE has a funding scheme called the CRII, which seems intended specifically for early career. So NTT academics who may
non-tenure track
academics who maybe lack the infrastructure. And so they're wondering whether SBE has a comparable scheme.
So the answer is SBE does not have a comparable program, but those people should feel free to apply to regular SBE programs. So let's talk about why SBE doesn't have a targeted program just for that. You use the NSF by the numbers page, you're going to see that there's a pretty big difference in resources between SISE as a directorate and SBE as a directorate. So what happens is a given SBE program is probably doing all sorts of things. Out of the econ program budget, we are funding careers. We do not have a freestanding pot of funding for career or a freestanding set of career panels. We are funding all sorts of stuff. We are really aware about the range of places that people come from. That's why we've got the Build and Broaden program. And if you're from an under-resourced institution that is an MSI, you should totally be checking that out for options for your institution. And you should go ahead and consider the regular programs and apply to the regular programs, knowing that they are open to applications from a really wide range of schools.
Thank you. And can you tell me, are there salary caps in the econ program?
So this is a question I get asked a lot about econ, and I wanted to answer it live because I wanted to make it two things clear. We do not have salary caps. We follow the PAPPG. If you work with economists as a research administrator, you are aware that their academic salaries are quite high. The econ program as a whole does not have enough money in our overall budget to give everybody 2 months summer salary, which is the PAPPG guideline, and make the number of awards we think we should be making. We do not have an official salary cap. We will work with your PIs on budget negotiations And if you have more questions, you're welcome to follow up with me via email. Your PIs tell you NSF has a salary cap. What they really mean is a lot of people tell me that Nancy is a mean negotiator who will not give me a budget total that covers 2 months' salary for me.
Thank you.
Okay, so
yes. So DDRIGs sometimes disallow students in social work from applying. Is there any specific reason why some disciplines are not allowed?
sure. So I wanted to answer this one live to make it clear to people that we previously gave DDRIG awards in sociology and political science that were managed through the NSF merit review process. And SBE has changed those two opportunities. NSF has now made awards to professional associations in those two areas that are now running something like a doctoral dissertation research improvement grant opportunity, but it does not go through NSF.
Okay.
If you're talking about one of the fields that still has an NSF hosted DDRIG competition, that is a question you need to email the specific program director. What I can tell you is that we get a lot of people who come to us in economics with DDRIG ideas that are clearly, we will say to them early on, well, you can apply, but we're pretty sure the merit review process is going to say this is not at the cutting edge of this field. With DDRIGs, we really are looking to improve the quality of dissertations. We know that everybody is not going to get a DDRIG from NSF. Okay, so follow up. I'm sensitive to the question. My own PhD is in business. It is not in economics. But you have to make the case if you're a student and getting a doctorate in social work that you are at the cutting edge of the science conversation. Okay, in the field that you're applying to.
Okay, thank you for that. And then now we're going to pick your brain a little bit more. So tell us, what assumptions might we be making about SBE funding that would have been true 5 years ago, but that don't hold so now?
So that one was, I wanted to ask live. It's a really great question, and I really had to think a little bit about it. I think one thing that has changed in the last 5 years is we are spending more and more SBE time in terms of our own program officer time, making sure that the cross-directorate competitions that call for SBE involvement really do integrate SBE perspectives throughout the merit review process. So that isn't specifically about the SBE programs themselves. Maybe the other question I would bring up is that we are moving, we're being increasingly innovative in being willing to open up new programs in certain targeted areas that are often like build and broaden, aimed at what we see as a need in the broader research community that we think we can speak to using SBE methods.
Okay. You just mentioned build and broaden, so I will ask, will build and broaden 3.0 be competed again this fiscal year or next fiscal year?
So that's a question to email. That's one of the reasons why I spent so much time in this presentation showing you the program pages. The best people to answer that are at the build and broaden email address. Nothing is final until NSF issues a new solicitation, and build and broaden B&B 3.0 is a 1-year solicitation. Informally, I haven't heard anything that suggests we won't be running some version of this next year. If I did, I would tell you clearly if we were planning to sunset it. But as always with NSF, it depends on our appropriations, and nothing is official until we issue the new solicitation.
And
yeah,
can you confirm?
I hope that was a pot. Yeah.
Yes.
So, but if you're wondering, the best way to answer for any of these is to email those program directors, because they will know more than I only know what they report on staff meetings. I'm not on the build and broaden team, and they may know more.
Okay. And can you confirm the SBE programs accept RUI proposals?
We don't have a targeted RUI program and a targeted RUI pot of funds, but of course we accept RUI proposals.
Yes.
So you follow the rules that are in the PAPPG about about exactly the materials that need to get included in an RUI specific proposal. And then any of the SBE programs will consider those. My boss regularly says, what are you funding from undergraduate institutions? What are you funding? What's the geographic diversity in your portfolio? Those questions all get asked, even if we don't have a targeted pot of money just for our UI awards.
Okay, and to carry on from there, we have someone wondering if you could speak to the role that RUI proposals and investigators from primarily undergraduate institutions play in the SBE funding landscape, maybe especially in econ, say. So you've seen RUI awards made in econ and other SBE disciplines. So the sense is they're a pretty small share, and we don't see a lot of PUIs among econ career awardees. So are there any tips for applicants at primarily undergraduate institutions hoping to have success in the SBE directorate?
Okay, so that's a really great question because it brings up the complicated issue of career for SBE. A lot of people get told that that the way to start with NSF as an assistant professor is career. That's probably not the best way to start with SBE. In my own opinion, I know for sure in economics that we fund more because this is information I can share publicly because it is based in part on people's academic statuses, which you can look up. We fund more assistant professors through the regular award program than we do through career. Year after year after year, if you use some of those tools to look at our portfolio. And I would suggest to anybody that you start with, and in addition, my personal opinion, as somebody who was an academic, is that it's easier to write a 3-year proposal than a 5-year one that also has to include an education plan. So we welcome career proposals, we participate in career, but if you're specifically asking how can we get more careers to RUIs, my answer would be, you need to be saying, how can we get our assistant professors to submit strong NSF proposals, whether they're a career or a non-career proposal? Okay, that's the basic building block.
And you may have mentioned this, reaching out to program officers at once or all together. So this one for doctoral dissertation grants, do you recommend emailing several program officers under one email to determine if the project fits in their programs? So for example, yes. Sociology and decision risk yes. management. Okay.
Yes, for the same reasons that I've already brought up. If they have an NSF program, your sociology should not be copied because they do not have an NSF run DDRIG program. And they are not going to be able to tell you if they think that project is suitable for the program that the American Sociological Association runs. You're going to have to use the American Sociological Association's information page for that and their contacts for that. If we're talking DDRIGs, however, it is super useful. In fact, in my program, we pretty much insist that both the student and the advisor need to be copied on all of the email. If you're a faculty member, you know that graduate students have lots of questions. NSF program directors are not the resource for answering questions that your students are scared to ask you. So having you be on the email helps you enforce, or if you're a research administrator saying, really, if it's a DDRIG, we should be putting your advisor on this email trail as well, helps all of us teach the students professional norms and like looking at the PAPG, and helps everybody be on the same page. But yeah, no, it's fine to email several program directors.
And are awards from PUIs evaluated separately in the merit review process?
That can really vary by program, but SBE, because we are smaller and because we tend to run, combine both the ad hoc and panel methods of review. If you don't know what those are, you want to listen to the merit review session. We would probably run them all through one single review process. They are definitely going to get funded out of a single pot of money at the program level. We have no dedicated pots of money for undergraduate institutions that are just for those at the division or directorate levels. We make those decisions out of our regular program budgets.
Okay, thank you. And where do topics of criminology or criminal justice fit in the directorate? like law and science or sociology?
Really depends. Are you contributing to law and science? Are you contributing to sociology? I would start in and check with those two programs first. Again, we really are interested in projects that are well formulated methodologically. We are interested in funding stuff that advances the cutting edge. One thing that happens for a lot of SBE fields is there are other funding programs in the federal government that are from mission-oriented agencies that are interested just in one specific question or topic area. And we tend to take a broader focus and more emphasis, and we have the combined emphasis on intellectual merit and broader impact. Whereas in NSF terms, one of those other funding programs somewhere else in the federal government may mostly be interested in the broader impact. How will it help them do their jobs better?
Okay. We've gotten to the last of the questions. We have a couple minutes left. If anyone has any additional question they want to throw in the Q&A real quick, or if Nancy, if you want to give any other tips. I thought that was a great slide you had that was one of your last ones on the kind of the tips in writing, failure to do this or listening here versus there. I thought that was a really, really great slide to have, like a teaching slide for people. So hopefully people do share that broadly at their organization. That should be able to help us a lot.
I think one thing I can say is that I'm really thrilled that the grants conference has been happening virtually, not because I'm happy because of COVID, but because I think a lot of these are resources that really PI should be seeing. So the proposal preparation process, the merit review session, those ones that were early, I get questions every single day from researchers that would be answered if they watched those sessions. So I hope y'all really, if you are in a research administration role, I hope you really do encourage people at the department level to be encouraging their faculty to look at those.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And if not seeing any more questions in the Q&A, I thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Nancy, for all the insights you provided, and everyone enjoy the rest of your day.